Hello, and welcome to today's webcast. Has the software-defined storage revolution finally arrived? Sponsored by StoreOne. This event is sponsored by Virtualization Review, and I'm Tracy Cook, and I'd like to welcome everyone for joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to take care of a few housekeeping details. Please feel free to type your questions into the Ask a Question box on the console at any time during the presentation. The webcast is being recorded and will be archived for future viewing, and starting tomorrow you can access the replay using the same link you used today. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator, John Twigo, Chairman of the Data Management Institute. John is a 25-plus year veteran of disaster recovery planning and a consultant on business automation issues for both vendors and consumers of information technology. He has written more than 1,000 articles for the technology trade press and is the author of 15 books. John is a much sought-after speaker on business technology who garners high approval ratings from both technical and non-technical audiences. So we're in great shape today, and I'd like to pass the event over to John.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you very much, and thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules today. We're going to try to give you a lot of information in a very short while. I'm delighted today to address the topic that's near and dear to my heart, what's happened to that software-defined storage revolution that we were all talking about a year or so ago. Now, this webinar is a little bit different than the ones you're probably used to. It is a part webinar. It's partly a one-way conversation between me and you. I'll talk for about the first 10-15 minutes, and then I'm going to have a chat with a fellow who I've known for, I don't know what, about 12 years now, Gal Naor. Gal is the CEO and founder of a company called StoreOne that you may not have heard of. You probably have heard of Gal's previous company, which was StoreWise, founded in the late 90s and subsequently sold to IBM for a lot of money, I would assume. Gal's been in the deep dark for about the last 7 years, developing an entirely new technology that I think is a real major game changer, and frankly I was delighted to get the opportunity to chat. So we'll bring Gal into this conversation later on. We'll have a directed fireside chat, and then we'll turn it over to you guys to ask questions. Now, what I recommend is along the way, go ahead and enter your questions into the Q&A tab in your part of the program, and then when we get to the end, we'll get through as many of those questions as possible. And Gal's already told me any questions we don't get to, they'll follow up in email and make sure you get an answer. Okay, so you had to have had your head buried in the sand for the last 5-6 years to have not heard the term software-defined storage. You know, it was supposed to be a revolution. I remember when I first heard about it, I was at a Gartner conference, and a guy got up on stage and he said, "We're not a product, we are a movement." And I thought, wow, a movement. I didn't know that I really wanted a movement in my data center, but I was interested in hearing what they had to say. And of course, the early evangelists were really trying to advance the idea that all of storage had become commodity, that it was overpriced, that it was poorly managed, that it was the cause of an awful lot of woes that we had, and they were going to fix it all by basically moving all the software off of the storage device and into the server head. This is actually not a new idea, it's an old idea. 1993 it was called System Managed Storage in IBM mainframes, and they decided that they were going to go that route. We'll get there in a second. In the old days, this slide kind of sums it up. We had seen storage go from an internal component of a system or a server and sprang out in basically two separate directions created by the industry. One was for file storage, and that ultimately produced network attached storage, or NAS. And the other, in the late 90s, early 2000s, was block storage that was done first on independent arrays that could be shared among multiple servers, then ultimately in sort of a network of storage boxes that was called a SAN. I say sort of a network because actual SANs were never delivered to market. They were switch direct attached storage. But anyway, the bottom line is that SANs became very popular. They were the talking point. Everybody who was anybody had a SAN and maybe some NAS heads for their user files, until people started to endure certain problems, or problems came to light. One was high cost. You know, these SANs tended to be poorly managed. There was no unifying principle for management. The technology itself really wasn't efficiently utilized. And of course, the switches were created by different vendors in full compliance with the standard for fiber channel switches, which meant since the standard had been delivered by the industry, there was absolute certainty that one vendor's switch wouldn't work with another vendor's switch. So you were running into proprietary lock-ins, and that increased the cost. And of course, the complexity was legend. You had to remember your worldwide address. You had to remember, basically people got skin poisoning by having to write all the addresses of all the boxes onto their forearms, and there were a lot of people treated for disease in those days. And then lack of management. The industry could not get its collective head together on how to manage all this gear. So if you had heterogeneous environment, which most companies had, where they were soliciting the best of breed hardware from whoever the best of breed vendor was at any given time, you probably had a mishmash of different products from different vendors and no coherent way to manage them all in unison. SNIA tried to come up with a new management interface called SMIS. However, only a small fraction of the storage community bothered to implement it. Later on, there was an opportunity to use the REST API from the Worldwide Consortium, World Wide Web Consortium, and that took hold, but unfortunately a little late in the game and not soon enough to change the pricing model of storage. And then there was also the appearance of competing technologies to the legacy architectures of the data center of the day. This included virtualization on server heads and also cloud technology. So all of these things sort of came together and started to compromise this convenient dependence we had on externalized storage using SAN and NAS, and sowed the seeds for a revolution. Okay, there was going to be a big change, a big movement away from hardware and towards software-defined storage. Now, the software-defined guys, I'm not trying to make them out to be ninnies, because they had some really good ideas. There were valid points. Storage at that time cost way too much. Okay, it was partially, as I said, a function of the lack of manageability, which is, of course, an accelerator of OpEx cost. When the copy machine breaks, you need to hire more monks to write all your books for you. And then there was also issues of proprietary design and lack of interoperability. Every vendor was trying to show his hardware box was somehow superior to his competitors. And they did that through a combination of improved hardware functionality and value-add software, which is the third point here, which was added to array controllers. I remember when data deduplication rigs first came out from one vendor, they were charging $410,000 for a box of components that cost $18,000 if you just bought the hardware. So the $410,000 price tag was pretty steep, and it was brought on by an argument they were making about the value of their software value add. But when you had a whole bunch of vendors adding their own proprietary value add software to their array controllers, it increased the obfuscation of management, increased the overall cost of the infrastructure. Now, data growth also challenged the efficacy of the storage paradigm. Basically, we tried to address the unbounded levels of data growth we were beginning to see in the early 2000s by using data reduction and compression technologies. And that was working pretty well. It's a tactical technology, though. It's not really a fix. We were dealing with a lot of unmanaged data that was being spun out onto a whole bunch of poorly managed infrastructure, and that's kind of a frog in a pot scenario for a disaster. And then finally, there was the macroeconomics effect. We were in a recession toward the end of the decade, and that made a lot of companies do what they always do when there's a recession, which is to question the efficacy of do-it-yourself infrastructure and basically to give outsourcing another look. And clouds were the latest modality for outsourcing. So anyway, that's where we were. From a legitimate standpoint. Now, unfortunately, the software-defined storage guys kind of got wrapped around the axle of prevarication, too. One of the ways that the hypervisor vendors sold their wares was by saying they were going to make everything more efficient. They were going to virtualize applications and run them as a virtual machine inside a server, and multiple virtual machines and multiple servers. However, in doing so, they usually resulted in the application performing with less alacrity than it did when it was loaded onto raw hardware. And they blamed this almost unilaterally on storage. they said that there was this thing called the I/O blender in the shared bus, and all of these tenants of the multi-tenant virtual machine environment were all competing for access to that bus, and they were, all their I/O was just getting mixed up, and it was getting placed wherever on the back-end storage, and that was creating the slowdown. Except that in truth, if you put any kind of a realistic measurement on it, you found that there was no queue depth to I/O, which meant that there weren't I/Os waiting to be processed by the back-end storage, whether you had a SAN or you had NAS or you had direct attached storage. It was always the same thing. The storage I/O was fine. It was the CPU that was cycling at a very high speed. It was a hot CPU. That indicates there was contention at the front end of the I/O path, unloading data from the applications or from those virtual machines onto the I/O. But an awful lot of software-defined storage, so it was called, was sold under the auspice of we're going to get rid of this choke point that exists in legacy storage, which really wasn't the problem for the most part. What the industry basically did was try to move value-add software off of the array controller. So you'd buy an array, and on that controller was RAID and maybe snapshots and maybe 10, 15 other functions that you're paying for through software licenses. And they were going to move that off and put it in a software stack that would run on a server instead. And that was software-defined storage. And it sounded like a pretty good idea. I mean, if you centralize all that functionality on a server, you can share it more efficiently across multiple boxes than isolating that functionality on an array controller on each individual storage array that you had out there. So I was kind of in favor of that. That sounded like a pretty good idea. And of course, it led inevitably to the development of a new generation of storage infrastructure. It was called Hyperconverged Infrastructure, HCI. Which took the form of an appliance. Now, unfortunately, the HCI revolution, or software-defined revolution, was kind of hijacked by hypervisor vendors, and they tried to make each one of these HCI appliances only work with a very specific hypervisor. That came back and sort of bit them in the tuchus later on. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so this basically takes us to where what the industry did in response. There we go. I'm sorry, I was getting a glitch here. Okay, now again, the whole concept of software-defined storage was not a new idea, but it was fraud. It was an architecture that was very closely modeled on IBM System Managed Storage from '93, and software-defined became synonymous with a stack architecture that was advanced by hypervisor vendors. The hypervisor vendors, each one came up with his own stack of software, and they basically certified hardware products to work with their stack, which meant that we were again into a proprietary hypervisor controlled environment. I don't think that we really changed much from what the legacy environment was offering us when we made the initial move. And there was actually very little improvement in manageability that accompanied this transition from software to software-defined and HCI. I have to reiterate that because it was really lack of management, lack of ability to achieve capacity utilization efficiency and capacity allocation efficiency that was the bugaboo that was kind of driving software definition in the first place. And yet this early approach really didn't do much to fix it. Now that led to other issues, and you saw one in after 10 years of SDS deployment. Gartner came out with a report, and they said, hey, two really cool things happened. When you deployed all this hyperconverged infrastructure, the annual cost per terabyte of storage actually declined significantly. Okay, it was down rather heftily from where it had been in the legacy storage days. And then when you looked at the average amount of capacity that an individual storage administrator could manage, it increased by up from 132 raw terabytes per administrator in 2011, it climbed to 344. Now those are two enthusiastic thumbs up reasons to do this, right? Except that you got to remember that the hypervisor vendors controlled the software-defined storage infrastructure. So if you had multiple hypervisor vendors, you had storage isolated behind each vendor, and you could not share that storage between different applications that weren't operating under that hypervisor. The result was, if you looked at the back matter of that Gartner report, you saw that over that 10-year period, there had been a net decline in utilization efficiency of 10%. Okay, so we had improved the cost metrics of storage, and we had improved the volume of storage that could be managed per administrator, but we had driven the overall efficiency, utilization efficiency of the infrastructure downward, and that was not a good thing. Because, as everybody knows, IDC's been projecting between 10 and 160 zettabytes of new data by 2024. Now, when you map that to our infrastructure, you've got clouds, you've got private infrastructure, you've got public infrastructure, you've got hybrid infrastructure. They're all using the same set of storage tools, whether it's silicon or it's disk or it's optical or it's tape or a mixture thereof. Now, the thing is that we're going to need maximum efficiency out of all that storage, or else we're going to end up with not enough space to store all the data. And that's an issue that is hitting the cloud guys first. Everybody thinks that cloud's its own form of storage, is smoking something and not sharing it. So basically what we've got is a situation here, and this is a model that was worked up by Microsoft Azure, where in the future, or at current levels, we're able to support about 500 exabytes of new capacity on silicon, and about 780 exabytes of new capacity on hard drives at current production levels, and with the roadmaps considered for how capacity increases will be provided, it doesn't really improve very much. Tape is really the only media that's showing significant growth. I just throw that out there. But anyway, the bottom line is, how are we going to store 160 zettabytes of new data if we're only able to produce less than 2 zettabytes of capacity using those things? So certainly working backwards in the software-defined storage, if we're losing capacity utilization efficiency, this becomes a nightmare scenario for large enterprises and for clouds going forward. So we need to start getting real about storage design, and I've been sort of getting tired of listening to a lot of pitches from a lot of storage vendors until recently, until I actually reacquainted myself with Gal and what he was doing over at StoreOne. Software-defined storage does not change the fundamental rules of storage. You still need to design your storage infrastructure to accommodate application I/O requirements, and you still need to create a design that is able to handle both the current capacity requirements you have from your workload and also scale to meet future capacity needs, and hopefully scale non-disruptively, so you're not doing forklift upgrades every 2 to 3 years, okay? And your design has to avail itself of efficient management, because that's really where the money gets spent. We'll show that in a second. And it must optimize and automate the allocation of protection, preservation, and privacy services that we want to apply to our data for the purposes of good data stewardship. And of course, it can't cost too much. Back in 2005, storage was costing somewhere between 33 and 70 cents of every dollar that was being spent on IT hardware. And that was just getting out of control. Okay, now storage cost isn't just a function of the acquisition cost, acquisition and licensing of the storage product. CapEx actually only accounts for about 20% of your annual total cost of ownership of storage. The other 75 to 80% is the preponderance is coming from OpEx costs. So everything from backup and recovery services to hardware management services to scheduled downtime and administration and your facility and environment services. That's known as the cost to manage. And of course, forklift upgrades don't really help matters, okay? They're a cost accelerator as well. So companies were buying storage under a model that frankly was broken by 2005, and it was becoming more and more apparent that that was the case. Today we need to rethink how we're doing storage. We need to link it to those goals that I said are fundamental to any storage infrastructure, but we also need to look at how are we going to apply automation so we can reduce OpEx costs. How are we going to simplify infrastructure and reduce the size of the kit that we need so that we can reduce both OpEx and CapEx costs? How are we going to scale it at web scale if we're a very large enterprise or a cloud environment? And how are we going to achieve the utilization efficiency by getting rid of all the silos that are created by using heterogeneous storage infrastructure? And finally, how are we going to make sure it's there when we need it? How are we going to reduce the risk and make sure the data has a certain amount of permanence? These are also design goals that we need to pay attention to. Now, design goals don't always translate into product features. I created this chart. Those of you may have seen last year's study on software-defined storage. To me, there was an XY axis here as you look through software-defined. One was, could it support, was the infrastructure only able to be used by one kind of workload, one kind of hypervisor, or was it hypervisor agnostic? Could it be used by all hypervisors and their workloads? And the z-axis, or the x-axis, or whatever, whichever one I didn't already say, was could it support all hardware? Was it isolated to or siloed just to use a single kind of hardware, or could I use mix and match hardware from a variety of sources? And I said that the software-defined storage infrastructure product that came forward that could handle any workload with any hardware, that was the sweet spot. That was what the dream goal was. That's what we were hoping we were getting to. I'm happy to say that StoreOne has kind of encouraged me to believe that that may actually be on the horizon now. And by the way, the cloud thing, for those of you who are still trying to work out clouds and say that they're going to fix all your storage problems, remember, you can't outsource a problem. You can only outsource a routine successfully. When something's routine, you don't need people to do it for you anymore. You can put that up in a cloud. But when it's a problem child, when it's an issue, that's not a good thing to outsource. You're never going to have a good outcome when you do that. So those are my 2 centavos, okay? Software-defined storage, in summary, is basically neither new nor magical. It represents a design choice that was adopted by storage engineers that has the potential to improve the management performance of storage infrastructure, but those results are not guaranteed without traditional planning, okay? And at the end of the day, all storage is software defined, even legacy wares are software defined, so don't be put off by the term software defined. And what I think is really needed at this point is a reimagination of software-defined storage that enables the best potential of the idea to be realized while driving cost to the bottom line. Now, having said that, I'm going to introduce Gal Nair from StoreOne. Gal is as I mentioned at the beginning, I've known Gal for about 10 years. I knew him over at StoreWise, where he was a co-founder and CEO. He is now the CEO and co-founder of StoreOne. StoreWise was an important company. It brought about real-time data compression in the enterprise storage market, which was kind of unusual at the time, basically delivering the storage or data compression at wire speed. That was a real accomplishment. IBM saw it, bought the company, and put Gal out to pasture, but he wasn't content to stay quiet. As you'll hear in a moment when we get into our conversation, StoreOne is reimagining traditional storage software. It's been developed over 7 years, and it's leveraging more than 50 patents. And we'll get more into that as it goes on. But Gal, I wanted to welcome you and thank you for coming in today.
Hi, John. Great to be with you again after 14 years. I remember the time in StoreWise, and thank you for the opportunity to share the vision of StoreOne and what we did.
All right, and Gal, I'm going to start with, probably you didn't ask for this, but I'm going to throw it out here anyway. I'm a big aficionado of Harvard Business Review, where they evaluate the value of any technology initiative in terms of a business value triangle. And I was delighted when I saw your launch materials included as the very first slide, a triangle. So I'm going to ask you, just to kind of kick things off, walk us through this triangle and tell us what metaphorically you're referring to here.
Great. Thank you, John. This is exactly what we are trying to present in this slide. We believe that everything is sync results. You need to think what's the result that you're going to get. In a typical storage solution, there are 3 elements that you're looking for. You're looking to get high performance and high capacity. You're looking to get ease of use, and you're looking to get data protection and data retention. And this is exactly the solution that we are bringing to the market. That we are the first that you are able to get the 3 elements of high capacity and high performance, ease of use, and data protection, and the same system without compromising. And how we did it, you can see it here in the triangle, that we managed to get high performance with our unique technology through storage, total resource utilization. We managed to get the ease of use with a real true SDS, software-defined storage, exactly like what you presented before. And the data protection and data retention, we managed to get it with integrated complete data protection and data retention. We believe that the think result, the result you're looking to get is the immediate ROI.
Okay, now that's an awful lot to unpack, so I'm going to drill down to this a little bit because you had a word slide here. I just popped it up. Talk about this. The immediate ROI is really what sticks out in my head from everything you just said first. Let's back into this with the business value. Without immediate ROI, you're probably not going to excite listeners who are coming from the business side of the house where the actual purchasing decisions are made. So talk us through your thinking on immediate ROI.
If you're looking to the left side, so this is what you expect to get from the storage solution, that as every storage problem has been solved, you can get today at the market any kind of performance, capacity, and data protection. Same you can get from performance and capacity with any amount, you can get it just with, any integrator can give you today any performance and capacity with a few amount of SSD and NVMe, and if you want to get capacity, just with JBOD. So storage should not be an issue anymore, but what you can see today at the market, the storage could continue to be an issue. Storage, instead to be simple, continue to be complicated. On the right side, you can see what we did. So the first thing is the think result, as I mentioned. In everything we do, we think about the best results for the customer. What is the best results? It's the lowest TCO and OPEX. And now you're able to do it with immediate ROI. Immediate ROI, it means you pay less than your annual support that you're able to get. This is immediate ROI. You don't need to wait a few years in order to get it.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. Now we're going to drill down a little bit into those three corners of your triangle. And what I'd like you to do, if you could, is slow down a little bit and just talk to me, because I know you're not used to doing webinars or any of this stuff, but I really would like you to take your time and make sure we understand everything that you're trying to say here. True storage. True stands for total resource utilization. Explain that concept to us. This was a fundamental design goal of your product, yes?
Great. So the first element of our technology is true storage, total resource utilization. It means that we develop very efficient software technology that we need dramatically less hardware to get the same performance and the same results. We are able to get you 5 times more performance on the exact hardware. Or if you're looking on the other side, you just need 1/5 amount of hardware in order to get the same results. So it means you have dramatically saving gear and lowest TCO. And you can see on the right side an example that you can see 24 SSDs. It's a regular JBOD and server. Then according to the spec of the drives, you should get 15 gigabyte of throughput. But today what you are getting, you're just getting 3 gigabyte. It means 1/5 of the potential. What we did with a better technology, you're able to get better results. You're able to get 15 gigabyte, the amount of potential performance out of the drives.
Okay, so this is via your software product, we're actually getting more throughput and more performance out of the infrastructure we'd normally buy. That must mean that we don't have to stand up an 11U cabinet to get 300,000 IOPS. We can do it with far fewer pieces of hardware. Is that what I'm hearing? Exactly.
That what we did with efficient software technology, you need dramatically less hardware in order to achieve better results and better performance.
Okay, now I was passionate about management as well, and it looks like you've got an ease of use story that knocks my socks off too. Are we planning on managing enterprise storage with a tablet or a smartphone?
Exactly. And by the way, we have here another example about the IOPS, that just with the 24 SSDs, you're able to get 1 million IOPS with very low latency. And even if you're looking about the 32 kilobyte, you can get close to 400,000 IOPS. Same about the density, that today within a 2-use JBOD, 2-use server, you can get 368 terabyte physical, not usable and not all the stuff. You mentioned about the management. This is exactly what we had in our mind when we started the company. That in 2020 you should manage your storage from any tablet, any smartphone. You should have the flexibility, and more than that, it should be easy. Like any child today can download any application and start and understand exactly how to operate it. This is how it should be the storage. You should get the user manual, the 150, 250 pages, but it should be intuitive, that you should understand exactly what to do in a very easy way.
Okay, now I would expect that if I was seeing this from another vendor, they'd be about to pitch me on a storage array that was going to cost me high dollar. But you're a software-defined storage vendor, so I'm not necessarily talking about a hardware kit that I'm buying from you. I'm doing this all in software. So that takes us to your second bullet, which is software-defined storage. Everybody's got their own definition of it, depending on the vendor that you talk to. You seem to be hitting the nails square on the head. Talk to me through this slide.
Yes, so this is the second element of our technology. We are true storage, software-defined storage. We are a native SDS. We designed the system to be SDS, and we managed to do it with total separation between the software and hardware. And this is what gives the end user full flexibility and ease of use. And I'll give you a few examples. The first thing, you can mix and match any drives. It means any performance and any capacity from the same vendor and different vendor. So we are letting you enjoy from the drive innovation that they continue to be better density and better performance. And we are truly hardware agnostic. We deliver what the industry said. You can use any kind of server without any dependency of any hardware. You can use Lenovo, Dell, HP, Supermicro, Quanta, any kind of server, and even about the physical, about the virtual server as well. You can install StoreOne as a virtual server that you can see an example on the right side, that the same software can be installed on any virtual, very low resources, as we will present later, and you can get 100,000 of IOPS. Of course, we are software, so we support all the storage protocols. You just need to decide in the hardware you're putting HBA or networking card. So we support Fiber Channel, iSCSI, NFS, CIFS, SMB, Object, all of them sharing the same drive. So of course that it's ease of use. You don't need planning. You don't need to manage few different devices. You're doing everything from the same user interface. And as we mentioned before, once you need 1/5 amount of the hardware, so all the management and all the OpEx will be much easier to do it. If you compare any kind of storage today, you can see that all the vendors are using the same protocols and the same drives. So Fiber Channel is Fiber Channel, and iSCSI is iSCSI, same about the object. If you're looking about the drive, so NVMe it's NVMe, software is HDD it's HDD, and SSD it's SSD. So the difference is about the software, and we believe that a better software will give you better results.
Okay, well, I see also a reference to a virtual appliance solution. Is this available as software running under a virtual machine?
Exactly. You can use the same software as a virtual machine, 30 minutes installation, and you can get a few 100,000 IOPS without all the complexity that you need to connect with a lot of networking. Very easy to install, 30 minutes installation, and you can get high capacity or high performance storage solution.
All right. Well, then let's turn to the third. You told me how I'm going to make my hardware infrastructure a lot simpler, and I'm able to mix and match hardware. But the other problem people often talk to me about is that even with the software-defined storage solution they deployed, they still have to go out and buy the software for data management, data protection, data preservation, and privacy from 30 different vendors. And that's where another cost center comes in. Is all of that bundled in your product, and how do I know that I'm getting best of breed from the one-stop shop?
Exactly. So it's an integrated complete data protection. It's a real technology challenge because just to give you high performance today, to give high capacity, you can get it just with the drives. The challenge is how to give you on top of high performance or high capacity complete data protection that you can continue to get the benefit of the ease of use, that you don't need to have different type of storage to manage. What you can see here about our complete data protection, so the first thing is to get unlimited amount of snapshots. So first of all, you're able to get unlimited amount of snapshots without any performance degradation. And of course, you have all the features, the writable snapshot, nested snapshot, consistency group, and VSS. Same about the redundancy drives. We thought about it as well. Today, you are limited to 1 or 2 drives failure. What we did, we designed a system that you can choose any amount of drives failure. So it's very important that if during the weekend or during the night you have any drive failure, you can still have 4, 5, or 6. And more than that, even the rebuild is very fast. What we are very unique here is that it's redundancy drive per volume. You don't need to design the whole system to work with the same redundancy. It's the redundancy file per redundancy amount of drives per volume. The last thing of our data protection, it's about the data integrity. We are the only vendor today that we have persistent integrity. You don't need to install NVDIM, you don't need to install batteries, you don't need to have UPS, you don't need to distribute it. We managed to get persistent integrity. It means we are able to recover from any hardware issue. This is very important. This is something unique that no one today at the market is even able to close to it.
Okay, so in summary, you provide a slide to say you're actually offering 3 different products and it's one product.
Exactly. What we see in this slide that what we are getting from the customers. So by the hand, they tell us, okay, so you have all flash array, you have high capacity, and you have the virtual appliance. So you can see that in each one of them, we are very unique. If you're looking about the all flash array, so we are able to get ultra high performance, and we mentioned very amount of resources needed in order to get it. But the most important, you are getting a full data protection. That it's something very important. And you don't need to install any driver. It's not that you are able to get it just with a lot of operation around it. It's very easy to install and to get it. The second thing, the second product here, it's about the high capacity. We are the only vendor today that you can get 10 petabytes capacity in a single cabinet. And we are doing it due to the drives innovation that you can get at 12 and 14 terabytes. And as it will be improved, you will get even more. The last thing here, it's about the virtual appliance. That what is very unique here, it's 2 elements. First of all, you can get only with a single, you can start with a single virtual appliance. You don't need to have a few in order to get it. So immediately you're getting all the benefits. You're getting all the data protection on top of it. And what is very interesting here, that with the virtual appliance, you can support external ESXi and external server, so it means the virtual appliance could give you the storage services for all the environment. So it's not 3 different products, John. What is nice here, it's just same software, it's StoreOne product that with the same software you're able to get. And this is due to the efficiency and the technologies that we developed, that you have all the benefits that could be implemented in different way.
Okay, let's assume that I want to start small. Let's assume I want to start with a small isolated island of this technology just for a proof of concept or whatever. You provided in your slide deck here an example of a SBB with 24 SSD drives. Walk us through what the metrics are on that you've evaluated and that you can deliver. And this is not the full flower of your technology. This is one instance of your technology, yes?
Yeah, so what we can see, this is a 2U server that it's clustered in a box. It's 2 nodes at the same server, so it's a 2U server. You can get from the capacity, as we mentioned, 368 physical terabyte SSD. And you can use the server as an all-flash array storage solution that you can get 750,000 IOPS, very low latency. You can get 12 gigabyte throughput. Or the other thing, as John mentioned, you can even start with a virtual appliance that you can install a virtual solution, both of them, to choose a single virtual appliance in each node, and you have a storage solution that you can get a few 100,000 IOPS, very high throughput, and it's very easy. So you have all the flexibility to choose what kind of implementation you're looking to get, and you can enjoy a very high performance, and to get both of them, the full data protection.
All right. Is there a difference, by the way, in the performance of this infrastructure if it's done as a virtual machine or on raw hardware?
No, it's the same software that installed in both of them. And the same thing, as I mentioned, 30 minutes installation. By the way, John, it could be installed on-prem or even on hosting. Both of them very easy to do.
Okay. Now, the next slide that you provided in your intro deck was I love this slide. This says basically to me that I can scale out in a completely different way. I used to think about adding more capacity to a pool and then having to rebalance all the data across the pool, etc. This kind of enables, or it looks to me that you're enabling the ability to just buy yourself more elbow room simply by adding more media to your environment controlled by the software-defined storage. Can you sort of walk me through this illustration?
Sure. So what you can see with a better technology, you are getting the better results. And you always enjoy from the better results, it's the end user. The end user getting all the flexibility and the ease of use that on the same 24 SSDs, for example, or any kind of hardware that he has, he can use the same drive for different protocols. So what you can see here is an example that you have one volume that it's block, sharing the same drive as the object volume and the same drive on the file volume. So it's very important for the storage admins that it's no planning. You don't need to maintain different environment, and you don't need to have plan if to buy more drive for this environment or the other drives. You can do it on the fly and very flexibility. More than that, as you can see here about the data protection, you can give each volume different amount of this redundancy. So it means if you have something very important, you can give more drive redundancy. And if you have another volume that is less important, you control it, you decide. And all of them sharing this different workload. So you see each volume, it's a different performance, and all of them sharing the same drive. So this is why we are different, that the end user, the storage admin, has now the flexibility to decide every time where you want to grow and how to do it, even from the drive. So you can see an example here that it's mix and match of 4 different drives. Of course, it's better to have the same drives along all the JBOD, but if you want to enjoy from the drives innovation, tomorrow morning it will be 60 terabytes, it will be 1 million IOPS. So as you mentioned, just add more drives. It could be HDD, SSD, or NVMe, and you can enjoy it. And what's very nice that you can order it overnight. So you just need to call StoreOne, and we ship you with FedEx, UPS, or any kind of shipment. And tomorrow morning you get it. You can just plug in. The system knows to recognize it automatically. And then you will get from your pool of performance, more performance, and the pool of capacity, more capacity. So this is the difference, that you don't need to continue to maintain different amount of protocols, and you're able to do it on the same environment with a single user interface.
I just felt the hearts of a bunch of vendors of object storage platforms and filers and block storage platforms drop through the floor, because now you've got sort of the one-size-fits-all platform, because at the end of the day, blocks is blocks, and I have to also admire that. All right, so wrapping it up here, how is StoreOne sold? Is it software that I buy? Is it a cloud service or something? Is it a kit? Do I order all my hardware from you? Give me the approach that you prefer.
So, John, thank you. As you can see, even here, you're getting the flexibility that you can buy StoreOne in a few ways. So the first thing that you can see, we call it S1 SDS. That is, it's a software-only solution. You pay per plan, and you pay per month. What does it mean? We don't charge you, we don't check if you used 100 terabyte, 102, or 110 terabyte. You just pay for plan up to 200, up to 500, and then it's very easy to get it. The second thing that we have, we call it S1 service. Like all services, you get the hardware free, and you just pay for the service. So it means you can start with any amount of drives. We will ship you overnight. If you need to decrease, we can ship you more, or you can send us back. And you pay annually here. And this is the best way to get very high performance or high capacity. And this is what we call at the beginning immediate ROI, that you pay less than your annual support, and you don't have all the first investment to buy all the hardware. The third option here, we call it S1 solution. This is the traditional storage like it exists today. We found that some customers, they prefer to buy in advance for 5 years, so we are welcome, and we are very flexible. As we mentioned that you can use it for different amount of protocols. Same here, what is best for you. What's important to say here is a few things. We are not playing games. You buy the software, you're getting all the protocols, fiber channel and object. You know, it's funny. You pay for object and fiber channel the same because it's software. It doesn't matter if it's HBA or if it's networking. Same about all the services. We don't charge you per license. Once you buy you have the license, you're getting all the data protection, you're getting all the services that we don't have today to mention all of them, but it's amazing. You're getting everything free that you can use it, and you have the flexibility. If you want to go with HDD, you want to go with SSD, and you manage everything from the same user interface. Everything is included, and as we mentioned, that it's dramatically less compared to the existing, but what is more interesting here, it's even dramatically less compared to the cloud. That with our efficient storage technology, and then we need dramatically less hardware. We need 80% less hardware to give you the same performance, the same capacity. This is why we are able to provide you much better pricing solution and to be very attractive to so many customers.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I had a slide that talked about the I/O blender and how that was ridiculous, that what was really standing in the way was slow CPUs. You have a wonderful slide here that shows that the choke point in contemporary storage has actually been the software. And I would like you to walk us through this slide, because I was flabbergasted when I heard you say this the first time. I very much enjoy this slide. Tell me about this slide. Tell everybody who's listening.
Thank you. This is a slide that I like it very much, because this is a way that we can install our technology advantage in a very easy way. So what you can see here, on the left side you can see the drives, and the right side you can see the networking. If you are looking what's happened in the innovation in the last year, so on the drives it jumped, capacity and density jumped from 18 gigabyte to 16 terabyte by 1,000 times. Same about the performance. From 100 IOPS per drive, today you can get more than 100,000 IOPS per drive. If you're looking to the right side about the networking, it jumped by 1,000 times as well, from 100 megabit to 100 gigabit. So what you can see, hardware is not the issue. The infrastructure is ready, and you can get it. So why today you are not able to enjoy from all the hardware innovation of the drives and the networking? Because of the software. Today the software is not efficient, and this is why you need more hardware in order to get more performance. And this is what we did different. We are able to give you the maximum existing performance and capacity up of the drives. So we call it that S1 Open, the software choke point. We managed to give you out of the box, out of the drives, what is already existing, and it's total resource utilization, true storage. You are able to enjoy the resources that you already have and exist.
Okay, so you basically you're delivering at less than a penny per gigabyte enterprise class storage that can satisfy just about every requirement that a person has for whether it's file, object, or block storage requirements. And that pretty much summarizes that business value case defined by your triangle here. I'm going to let you have just a 1 or 2 more minutes here to walk us through a little bit of background on you. You're not a fly-by-night, and you're not a newcomer to the storage industry. You've been disrupting storage for at least a decade now. So I'll let you toot your own horn, and then we'll close out the thing and go to the audience Q&A.
Thank you. We started the company more than 7 years ago, and when we started the company, we decided that we would like to change the storage market and to give the storage manager the flexibility and the ease of use. We could do it faster, we could do it in 2 years and 4 years, and believe me, we got a lot of pressure from the investors to be out with the product. But we decided that we need to come with a storage solution that will give you all the 3 elements: high capacity and high performance, ease of use, and with all the data protection and data retention. And this is the challenge, to be able to provide it to the customer with the immediate ROI, as you mentioned, less than 1 cent per gigabyte. And we did it, thanks God. We have more than 50 patents, and that we have a great team of developers that did a good job to develop it, and it's not easy. As we mentioned before about StoreOne, this is my second company, and to come to the market with enterprise class product, it's a lot of challenges, but we managed to do it all the way. And a lot of good people joined the company. As I mentioned, John Thompson, chairman of Microsoft, Ed Zander, the ex-CEO and chairman of Motorola, Kirk Bradley, employee number 5 in Oracle. This is the guy that developed the SQL. All of them joined the company in order to assist us to bring a new storage technology solution to the market. We have offices in New York, in Texas, in Singapore, we have in Israel. And about my background, I mentioned my co-founder is named Raz Gordon. What's important to know about Raz? Raz came in the beginning of 2000. He was the first one to achieve the full wire speed of the networking. And the people that remember that if you got 10% of the networking in 2000, you were very excited. Today, if you're not getting the full wire speed, you don't buy it. The same about the drives. And this is what we believe should be at the storage. If you're able to get only 10%, 20%, if you're able to get from 24 SSDs just 100,000 IOPS, something wrong here. You should get 1 million IOPS. If you're able to get from 24 SSDs that's just 3 gigabytes, something wrong. More than that, if you need to install drivers in order to enjoy the performance, something goes. So customers should not pay or should not work the job for the vendors. The vendors should come with very efficient software in order to do it. And this is what we said: with a better technology, you're able to get a better storage solution.
All right, and the entire value case is results driven, which I love about this slide. I think this is my favorite slide of all the slides, is the fact that you are completely results driven. At this point, we have about 10 minutes left for questions. So what I'd like you to do is, if you have questions, we went through the value case and the metrics of StoreOne and TrueStore rather rapidly here. If you have specific questions you want to ask, please put them in the Q&A tab, and we're going to get to as many of those questions as possible in the remaining time. I'm going to leave on the presentation manager a picture of the for further information slide, just so you have that to look at while we're talking. Okay, we already have, I told you these guys are fairly aggressive to come to these things. We already have a question that comes in. How do you overcome the physics? He's asking, how do you not have a degradation of performance when you're mixing and matching a whole bunch of different kinds of media and a whole bunch of different kinds of protocols and speeds and feeds of the interconnects?
It's very good question. First of all, the challenge was at the first to achieve high performance.
While we maintain the full data protection, data retention, and the system designed to work in two ways. So you can have different type of drives. So you can have NVMe, SSD, and HDD at the same system, and each one of them could be a different pool in order to get in. And more than that, you can get hybrids, so we are able to move. You can decide if you want to move data from different tiers in order to get it. And even inside the SSD, we know to identify different pools of drives in order to give you all the time the best results that you can get. All the company, it's about results, that you can get the best result out of the existing hardware that you already have.
All right, next question is, are you suggesting that all flash arrays should be used for things like archival storage, or do you also support disk and tape as well?
It's very good questions, because as we can see at the market, the price per terabyte per SSD dropped dramatically. And the ratio between SSD and HDD today is 10x. It's not like the HDD and cassette that it was between 100 to 1,000 times. And if you put inside all the expenses that you have for the power and other stuff, it starts to be very attractive. So we see more and more customers that they have the old flash array with the backup and the same machine. They enjoy it. It's very easy to maintain. They can replicate to the cloud. And we see more and more customers. But of course, we have customers that are looking to get the second tier with 10, 20 petabytes. As I mentioned, we are the only one today in the market that we are able to provide 10 petabytes in a single cabinet. So both options working very well.
All right, and somebody says, if you can do everything that you say, does it even make sense to store data in the cloud anymore?
We got a lot of customers that we start to move the data back to ground. And these customers, they have a lot of years in the cloud, and they got a lot of hidden cost for the networking, for the security, to put all of your data in someone else's hands. And more than that, if you want to get at the cloud even single snapshot, you need to double the amount of the capacities that you have. So we see more and more customers that it's something that it was not exist before, because no one at the market before could offer you 1 set per gigabyte. It's not manipulation. We are talking about physical capacity. We are not telling you that you are able to get it if you will achieve capacity reduction. And this is what we are different. If you will achieve capacity reduction, you will enjoy it, out of it. So I think cloud is a good solution. But StoreOne today is that what we present here is that we open a new opportunity to store data in very high capacity and performance, ease of use, like the cloud, that you're able to maintain from the same user interface, all the storage protocols, all the workload, and you're getting all the data protection. And what is fun is that we are able to provide you even dramatically less compared to the cloud.
Okay, this person says, why is it that when I buy a drive online, let's say, pardon me, $290 for a 2 terabyte drive, I don't know where you're buying that drive, it's probably too expensive. I get 2 terabytes from one of the major vendors and it costs 10 times that much. What is StoreOne doing about that?
It's a funny question for today. You know, I just check online in Amazon on the Prime Day, and you can buy the 12 terabyte for less than $200. So it means the price it's very, very low. And this is what made us with the idea that there is no reason today to continue to pay so much for the hardware. And if you're able to get the HDD, and I'm talking about SaaS solution, same about the SSD, we believe that the customers and the storage vendors, they should not compromise on the quality of the drives. All of our solutions are coming with SaaS drives, high endurance, because this is what the customer should get. And we are not able to get the price reduction with SATA or anything. So you are getting the best, and on top of it, with efficient software that we need very low resources in order to get it. This is why we're able to give you very attractive pricing.
A lot of vendors are trying to make a sale that's based on the current concern about security, information security, particularly malware like ransomware. So I like this question we just got. Do you currently support any kind of encryption standards? Do you support versioning? Do you support worm technology?
Yeah, of course. We developed the storage solution that we continue to add more and more functionality on top of it. We have customers that like to encrypt the drives. We have customers that have any specific requirements, and we manage to get them to do it. So the answer is yes, we manage to develop our technology, that we have all the flexibility to give the client the full storage solution, to get everything in the single user interface, that it doesn't need to continue to maintain any other technology in order to get the same results.
Okay, this is a related question. Maybe you can dwell on it a little bit more. Does this technology support encryption? Is it done in hardware or in software? And does, if it does support encryption, what is the overhead imposed by encryption?
Let's start from the end about the overhead. Of course, we are not able to make any magic. So if you have more stuff that you would like to get, you have overhead. Currently, we support, as I mentioned, the drive encryption. And customers that have any specific encryption, we work with them to get it done.
Okay. Can I run your software with my own Whitebox equipment?
Yes, sure. This is what we see more and more. The customers have already existing hardware. We just sent our software, and over the phone, 30 minutes, the system is up. Same with the virtual machine. So if you have a system with a virtual machine, it's easy of installation that you can get it.
Okay, we have a bunch of doubting Thomases in the audience. It says, if you can do everything you say, we've gone there. Can you dive deeper into Hyperconvergence solution and talk about how I can use it with my VMware or other hypervisors?
Very good solution. So as we mentioned before, it's the same software that you're getting the image from StoreOne, and you just install it as a virtual machine. What is nice here is that the installation of the virtual machine, you're able to get the high performance, as I mentioned, IOPS and throughput, and very easy, 30 minutes without to change any configuration, and plug and play.
Okay, we have time for one last question, provided you make it really fast, okay? Do you offer a file system?
Yes, of course. As I mentioned, we support block fiber channel iSCSI, and about the file we have NFS 234, we have SMB, and we have an object. We don't have time to dive in, but of course you can access the object from the NFS and other stuff. That all the advantages to get the best storage solution in single user interface.
All right, that's the number of questions we have time for. We have a few more that have just popped into the queue, and I'm hoping that you'll find time to respond to them when we're offline. Tracy, I kick it back over to you because I don't want to take these people's time more than they generously provided already.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you and Gal for a great job today, great presentation and discussion. I'm sure everybody appreciated it. I sure appreciated you guys taking your time to be with us today. And I'd also like to thank the audience for attending this webcast sponsored by StoreOne and presented by Virtualization and Cloud Review. Thanks again, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.